I stared at my phone screen, reading the text message for the third time, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something less devastating. If you're not going to babysit 4 kids, then don't even come to Christmas dinner. Period. The message came from my sister Sarah, and I could practically hear her condescending tone through the pixels. This was supposed to be the Christmas where I finally introduced Emma to my family, the woman I'd been planning to propose to after the holidays. Instead, I was getting ultimatums about free childcare. When I tried explaining that I wanted Emma to actually meet everyone, instead of watching me chase toddlers around, Sarah's response was swift and brutal. Within minutes, both my parents had texted their agreement with her demand, 3 against 1, just like always. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter of my Seattle apartment and walked to the window overlooking Elliott Bay. The December rain created streaks down the glass, matching the frustration building in my chest. Emma looked up from her laptop, where she'd been working on her graphic design portfolio. "Everything okay with the Christmas plans?" she asked, though my expression probably already answered her question. "Not exactly." I pulled out my phone and showed her the exchange. Her eyebrows rose as she read through the messages. "They want you to babysit during dinner when I'm supposed to be meeting them for the first time." I nodded, then walked to my home office and retrieved a thick folder from my filing cabinet. Emma followed, watching as I spread bank statements across the dining table. The numbers told a story I'd never shared with anyone in my family. "Remember when I told you my family was going through some financial rough patches?" I said, pointing to a series of transfers dating back 3 years. "What I didn't mention was that I've been covering their Christmas expenses since 2021. Emma leaned closer, studying the documents. Transfer after transfer, each one substantial. November 15th, 2021, $3,500 to Holiday Fund. December 10th, 2021, $2,000 labeled Emergency Christmas Help. The pattern continued through 2022 and 2023, growing larger each year. "Henry, this is over $15,000 just in Christmas money," Emma said softly. $18,000 this year." I corrected, pulling out my laptop and opening my banking app. "That includes the turkey, all the gifts for Sarah's kids, the decorations, and what was supposed to be a down payment to help my parents avoid foreclosure on their house." The story poured out of me then. 3 years ago, during a casual phone call, my mother had mentioned they might have a quiet Christmas because money was tight after my father's construction business took several hits. A major client had defaulted on payment, leaving Dad with unpaid invoices totaling nearly $20,000. They were behind on their mortgage and struggling to keep up with basic expenses. I'd started small that first year, anonymously sending money through my mother's Venmo account with notes like, "From a grateful client," or "Christmas bonus surprise." My parents never questioned the mysterious benefactor, and I never revealed myself. Watching their joy and relief when they could afford a proper Christmas dinner and gifts for Sarah's children felt better than any present I could have received. "But why anonymous?" Emma asked. I laughed bitterly. "Because I knew what would happen if they found out. Sarah would find a way to take credit or make it about her somehow. My parents would feel guilty accepting help from their son, and honestly, because I wanted them to just enjoy Christmas without obligation or awkwardness." The second year, the amounts increased. Dad's business was recovering slowly, but medical bills from my mother's breast cancer scare had depleted their savings. I covered not just Christmas, but helped with Sarah's mortgage payments when her husband Jake was between jobs. Again, all anonymous. This year was supposed to be different. I'd planned to reveal my contributions and make the down payment on my parents' house official. $25,000 that would secure their home and let them refinish the basement into a proper guest room where Emma and I could stay during visits. I'd been working overtime at my software engineering job, taking on freelance projects during weekends, and living on ramen noodles to save every possible dollar. I've been looking forward to this Christmas for months. I continued showing Emma the shopping bags in my closet. Educational tablets for Sarah's kids, art supplies for 10-year-old Sophia, who loved drawing winter coats for the twins, Marcus and Madison, and a remote-controlled drone for 12-year-old Mason. I wanted to see their faces when they opened presents I could actually take credit for. Emma picked up one of the tablets, still in its box. "These are expensive, Henry. Like, really expensive. $400 each." I confirmed. Plus, the coats were $60 apiece from that outdoor gear store, and the art supplies set was $200. Mason's drone was $350. And now Sarah wants you to babysit instead of introducing me to everyone. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was expected to fund the celebration and provide free childcare, while my girlfriend sat awkwardly in the corner being ignored. The $18,000 represented months of sacrifice, overtime work, and careful planning. I'd turned down social events, skipped dinners out, and driven my 10-year-old Honda Civic with its rattling muffler because I couldn't justify the expense of repairs when my family needed help. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Sarah. "Mom says you're being dramatic about this. It's just a few hours of watching kids. Grow up." I showed the message to Emma, who shook her head in disbelief. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I looked at the bank statements, the Christmas gifts, and the folder containing the house down payment paperwork. 3 years of silent generosity, and this was how my contributions were valued. Not just underappreciated, but completely unknown, while I was treated like a selfish bachelor who couldn't be bothered to help with family responsibilities. I picked up my phone and typed a response. "Cool. Then my $18,000 isn't showing up to Christmas either. Consider it all canceled." The typing indicators appeared immediately on Sarah's phone, then disappeared. Then appeared again. I could imagine her staring at her screen trying to process what I'd just said. My phone remained silent for exactly 7 minutes. Then it started ringing. "Mom" appeared on the screen, and I could hear the panic in her voice before I even said hello. "Henry, sweetie, what do you mean $18,000? I don't understand what you're talking about." I took a deep breath. "The money I've been sending for Christmas every year, the anonymous donations that helped you keep the house, the mysterious Christmas bonuses that paid for Sarah's kids' presents." The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. Finally, my mother's voice came through, small and confused. "That was you. But Sarah said she'd been helping us. She said her freelance writing business was doing really well, and she wanted to contribute to family Christmas." My stomach dropped. Sarah said what? "She's been so generous, Henry. Every November she tells us not to worry about Christmas expenses because she's got it covered. We've been so proud of how successful she's become with her writing." I closed my eyes, the pieces falling into place. "Mom, Sarah doesn't have a freelance writing business. She works part-time at a dental office. But the money always comes right after she mentions helping. Sometimes she even shows us screenshots of payments coming in from her writing clients." The manipulation was worse than I'd imagined. Not only had Sarah been taking credit for my financial support, she'd been actively deceiving our parents about the source. While I worked overtime and lived on instant meals, she was basking in praise for generosity she had nothing to do with. Before my mother could respond, call waiting beeped. Sarah's name appeared on the screen. "Mom, I need to call you back." I switched to Sarah's call, and she immediately launched into attack mode. "What the hell is wrong with you? Do you have any idea what you just did? Mom is crying because she thinks Christmas is ruined." Maybe you should have thought about that before lying to them for 3 years. "But lying, what are you talking about?" "The freelance writing business, Sarah. The mysterious Christmas bonuses. Mom just told me how proud they are of your generous contributions." The silence was different this time. Guilty rather than confused. I never actually said the money came from my writing. She finally said, her voice smaller. "You showed them fake screenshots, Sarah. You let them believe you were the one helping when you knew it was me." I didn't know it was you at first. The first year I thought it really was some grateful client of Dad's. When I figured it out, I just didn't correct their assumptions. For 3 years. It made them happy. They were so stressed about money, and seeing them proud of me for once felt good. You live in Seattle making your big software engineer salary while I'm stuck here struggling with 4 kids and a part-time job. The resentment in her voice revealed the real issue. This wasn't about Christmas or babysitting. It was about years of feeling inadequate compared to her younger brother, who'd moved across the country and built a successful career. So you thought I owed you free money and free babysitting. You don't have kids, Henry. You don't understand the pressure. Jake lost his job twice in the past 2 years. I've been barely keeping our heads above water while you're off playing house with your girlfriend. My father's voice joined the call suddenly. Henry, your mother handed me the phone. She's very upset. What's this about $18,000? Dad, I've been the one sending the Christmas money every year, not Sarah. But Sarah always tells us right before the money shows up that she's got Christmas covered. Because she knew when I was sending it. I transfer money to Mom's Venmo in November, and Sarah would get the notification timing to make it look like her contribution. My father's breathing became heavier. Sarah, is this true? Dad, it's complicated. Henry makes way more money than us, and we've been struggling. I just wanted you and Mom to not worry so much about finances. By taking credit for your brother's generosity. I never asked him to send money, he did that on his own. And you never asked him to stop taking credit for it either, I said. In fact, you asked him to babysit while he funded the entire celebration. My father's voice turned stern in a way I hadn't heard since we were teenagers. Sarah Elizabeth, you owe your brother a massive apology, and us an explanation. This is ridiculous, I'm hanging up. The call ended, leaving my father and me on the line together. Son, I had no idea. We've been thanking Sarah for years, thinking she was making these big sacrifices for the family. Dad, there's more. The $18,000 this year includes a down payment I was planning to make on your house, to help you avoid foreclosure. Another long silence. You know about the foreclosure. I've known for months. I was going to surprise you and Mom after Christmas dinner, make it official and help you keep the house. Henry, we can't accept that kind of money from you. You've been accepting it for 3 years, Dad. The only difference is now you know where it's coming from. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Then I realized it was Jake, Sarah's husband. Henry, this is Jake. Sarah just told me what happened. I had no idea about any of this. We need to talk. Emma had been quietly listening to my side of the phone conversations. But when I hung up with my father, she cleared her throat. Henry, I need to show you something. She went to her laptop and opened a folder labeled Henry's Family that I'd never noticed before. Inside were several audio files dated over the past 2 months. Please don't be mad, she said. But I've been recording some of the video calls with your family. Sarah said some things that bothered me, and I wanted to document them in case this kind of situation ever came up. She opened the first file dated November 15th. Sarah's voice filled the room through Emma's laptop speakers. Emma, I need to ask you a favor, but don't tell Henry about this conversation, okay? It's about Christmas. Emma's voice responded cautiously. What kind of favor? Henry's always been too generous for his own good. He tends to go overboard with Christmas gifts and money stuff. This year I'm worried he's going to stress himself out trying to impress everyone with expensive presents. I think he just wants to show his love for the family. Right, but here's the thing. I've been coordinating Christmas finances for our parents for a few years now, and I was hoping you could encourage Henry to contribute a little extra this year. Nothing crazy, maybe just an additional $2,000 for Christmas dinner and decorations. Our parents are too proud to ask directly, but it would really help. My blood pressure rose as I listened to Sarah manipulate my girlfriend into asking me for more money. Emma's recorded voice sounded uncomfortable. I don't think I should be involved in family financial discussions. Oh, it's not like that. I just know Henry trusts your judgment, and if you mentioned that contributing to Christmas would mean a lot to the family, he'd probably be happy to help. Think of it as helping him figure out how to best support everyone. Emma paused the recording. She specifically asked me not to tell you about this conversation. She said it would be our little secret, and that she was trying to protect you from feeling pressured. When was this? 2 weeks ago, right after our video call where I mentioned I was excited to meet everyone at Christmas. She opened another audio file from November 22nd. Hey, Emma, just checking in about our Christmas conversation. Were you able to talk to Henry about contributing a little extra? I haven't brought it up. I really think financial discussions should stay between you and Henry directly. Sure, I totally understand. It's just that Henry can be sensitive about money stuff, you know. He gets weird if he thinks people are asking him for help directly. But if it comes from you, like suggesting he might want to contribute, it doesn't feel like charity to him. Sarah, I'm not comfortable with this. Oh no, I totally get it. Don't worry about it. Henry's already doing so much for the family. Sometimes I think he forgets that he's not responsible for all of us. You know, he's such a pushover when it comes to family stuff. Emma paused the recording again. She called you a pushover, Henry. And the way she laughed when she said it felt really mean. She opened a third file from December 5th. Emma, I hope you don't mind me calling. I just wanted to give you a heads up about Christmas dinner. Henry's probably going to want to help with the kids during dinner, but honestly, it would be better if he could just focus on that instead of trying to socialize too much. The kids can be overwhelming for people who aren't used to them. Actually, Henry and I were hoping to spend most of the time getting to know everyone. It's my first time meeting the family. Right. But here's the thing. Henry's really good with kids, and my husband Jake will be working during dinner prep, so I'll need the extra hands. Plus, the kids absolutely love their Uncle Henry. It would almost be selfish to keep him away from them, just so you two can chat with the adults. I think we should let Henry decide how he wants to spend his time. Well, yeah, obviously. I'm just saying if you really care about what's best for the family, you'd encourage him to help where he's most needed. The manipulation was breathtaking. Sarah had been working on Emma for weeks, trying to isolate me from my own girlfriend during Christmas dinner, while simultaneously extracting additional money. Emma opened one more file, this one from December 10th. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking for Christmas, Sarah's voice said. But this time she wasn't talking to Emma. This sounded like a phone call with someone else possibly recorded through another device. Jake, I know you think I should tell them the truth about the Christmas money, but honestly, what they don't know won't hurt them. Henry's got more money than he knows what to do with, and my parents are so proud thinking I'm the one helping them. Why ruin that? A male voice responded, which must have been Jake. Sarah, it just feels wrong taking credit for your brother's generosity. I'm not taking credit. I'm just not correcting a misunderstanding. Besides, Henry gets to feel good about helping anonymously, my parents get to feel proud of their daughter, and everyone's happy. It's a win-win situation. But what if he finds out? He won't. Henry's too conflict avoidant to ever ask direct questions about family finances. He'll keep sending money and staying quiet because that's who he is. The perfect little brother who never rocks the boat. Emma closed the laptop. I've been documenting everything, Henry, because something felt really off about how she talks about you. She acts like you're this naive person she can manipulate, and it made me angry. I sat back in my chair, processing the recordings. Not only had Sarah been taking credit for my financial contributions, she'd been actively working to isolate me during Christmas dinner while trying to extract even more money through Emma. The level of calculation was stunning. There's one more thing, Emma said hesitantly. Jake texted me directly last week. She showed me her phone. A message from Jake read, Emma, I don't know if you know about Sarah's arrangement with Henry regarding Christmas money, but I'm starting to feel uncomfortable about it. If you get a chance, maybe you could encourage him to talk directly with our parents about finances instead of going through Sarah. I think there are some misunderstandings happening. Jake tried to warn you, I said. I think Jake figured out what was happening and felt guilty about it, but he was caught between his wife and doing the right thing. My phone rang again. This time it was Jake calling directly. Henry, we need to talk. I just confronted Sarah about the Christmas money situation, and she admitted she's been letting your parents think she was the source for 3 years. I had no idea until today. Jake, did you know Sarah was trying to get additional money from me through Emma? What no Emma were you involved in this? Emma took the phone. Sarah asked me to convince Henry to contribute extra money for Christmas, and she specifically asked me not to tell him about the conversation. Jesus Christ. Sarah, get on the phone right now. I could hear arguing in the background. Then Sarah's voice came through clearly. Fine. Yes, I asked Emma to encourage Henry to contribute more money. Yes, I've been letting Mom and Dad think the Christmas money comes from my writing business. Yes, I know it's wrong, but I'm drowning here, and Henry has no idea what it's like trying to raise 4 kids on almost nothing. Sarah. Jake's voice was firm. You've been lying to everyone for years. Your brother's been sacrificing to help this family while you take credit and ask for more. I never asked him to send money. But you asked him for babysitting while he funded Christmas dinner, and you tried to manipulate his girlfriend into getting more money from him. The call ended abruptly. My phone immediately rang again with another call from my mother. Henry, your father and I have been talking. We need to understand exactly how much you've contributed over the years, and why you felt you had to do it anonymously. I spent the next hour on the phone with my parents, walking them through bank statements and explaining the timeline of my contributions. Their shock and gratitude were genuine, but underneath I could hear something else: embarrassment at being deceived by Sarah for so long. After hanging up, I sat at my dining table staring at the financial records spread across its surface. Emma brought me a cup of coffee and sat down across from me. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking this is bigger than just Christmas money, I said, pulling out a different folder from my filing cabinet. Remember how Sarah mentioned struggling financially? I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app, scrolling back through 18 months of transactions. There it was, a Zelle payment to Sarah for $3,000, dated June 15th of the previous year. What's this one for? Emma asked, pointing at the transaction. Emergency loan, I said, the memory returning. Sarah called me panicking because Mason had broken his arm, and they didn't have money for the emergency room copay and follow-up orthopedic visits. She said their insurance had a high deductible, and they needed $3,000 to cover medical expenses. I pulled up my text message history with Sarah from that time period. Her messages were frantic and emotional. Henry, I don't know what to do. Mason's in so much pain and we can't afford the specialist. Jake's between jobs again, and I'm only working part-time. Can you please help us? I'll pay you back as soon as things stabilize. Did she pay you back? Emma asked. I scrolled through the months following the loan. No payments from Sarah, no mention of repayment. In fact, the next communication from her was in November, asking about Christmas plans. She never brought it up again, I realized. I honestly forgot about it until now. Emma frowned. But if Mason broke his arm in June and you sent money for medical bills, there should be some record of those expenses. I opened a new browser window and navigated to Sarah's Facebook profile. Emma watched over my shoulder as I scrolled back to June and July of the previous year. What we found made my stomach turn. Photos from July 4th weekend showed Sarah and Jake at a beach resort in Florida with all 4 kids. The captions talked about a much-needed family vacation and finally able to relax. The timestamps showed they'd been at the resort from June 20th through June 25th. Henry, Emma said quietly, if Mason had a broken arm requiring specialist treatment, would they have taken him on a beach vacation 5 days after you sent the emergency money? I scrolled through more photos. Mason appeared in multiple pictures, both arms clearly functional, building sandcastles and swimming in the ocean. No cast, no medical device, no sign of any recent injury. She lied about the emergency. I said, the realization hitting like a physical blow. There was no broken arm, no medical bills. She used my money for a vacation. Emma pointed at one of the photos. Look at this caption. Thanks to some unexpected freelance money, we could finally afford this trip. The kids have been asking to visit the beach for years. Even then, Sarah had been misrepresenting the source of the money. My emergency loan for a fictional medical crisis had become unexpected freelance money that funded a family vacation I'd unknowingly paid for. I kept scrolling through the timeline looking for any mention of Mason's supposed injury. Nothing. No posts about hospital visits, no requests for prayers or support, no updates about recovery. The entire medical emergency had been fabricated to extract money from me. "How much is that in total?" Emma asked. "The Christmas money plus the fake emergency loan." I opened my calculator app and started adding figures. 3 years of Christmas contributions, plus the fake medical emergency, plus the down payment I'd saved for my parents' house. $58,000, I said. Not counting interest or the overtime hours I worked to save it. Emma sat back in her chair. "Henry, this isn't just sibling conflict. This is financial fraud." She was right. Sarah had systematically lied to extract money from me while taking credit for my generosity with our parents. The vacation photos were evidence that she'd used my emergency loan for personal luxury instead of the stated medical purpose. I picked up my phone and called Jake directly. "Henry, I'm glad you called. Sarah and I have been arguing about this situation all afternoon." "Jake, I need to ask you something. Last June, when I sent money for Mason's broken arm and medical expenses. How serious was the injury?" Long silence. "What broken arm?" My heart sank. "Sarah told me Mason broke his arm and needed specialist treatment. She asked for $3,000 for medical bills. Henry Mason has never broken his arm. He's never had any serious injuries requiring specialist care." "But you guys went to Florida in July, the beach vacation." "Yeah, Sarah said she'd gotten a big freelance writing payment and surprised us with the trip. It was the first vacation we'd taken in 3 years. Jake's voice grew quieter. "Oh my God. She used your money for our vacation and told you it was for medical bills. I have the text messages where she described Mason being in pain and needing surgery." "Henry, I am so sorry. I had no idea. Sarah handles most of our finances, and when she said she'd gotten paid for a big writing project, I didn't question it. We'd been so stressed about money, and the kids were excited about the beach." Jake, has Sarah actually been doing freelance writing? Another pause. "Not that I know of. She talks about it sometimes, but I've never seen any actual clients or payments." The scope of Sarah's deception kept expanding. Not only had she been manipulating me and our parents, she'd been lying to her own husband about her income sources. "There's something else," Jake continued. "After our argument today, Sarah admitted that she's been planning to ask you for money for the kids' college funds next year. She said you're basically the family bank, and you're too guilty about living far away to say no." I closed my eyes. She said she'd figured out the perfect system to get financial support while keeping everyone happy. Your parents think she's successful, you get to feel generous, and she gets to manage the family finances. "Manage the family finances with my money. Henry, I love my wife, but what she's done is wrong. I told her she needs to come clean with everyone and start paying you back, but she says you can afford it and she can't." I looked at Emma, who'd been listening to my side of the conversation. She nodded toward my laptop. "Jake, I'm going to send you some screenshots. Sarah's been taking credit for my Christmas contributions for 3 years, and I have evidence that the emergency loan was used for your Florida vacation instead of medical bills. Send me everything. Sarah and I need to have a serious conversation about honesty in our marriage." As I compiled the evidence, my anger was transforming into something more focused. This wasn't just about money or Christmas dinner anymore. It was about establishing boundaries and making sure Sarah understood there were consequences for financial manipulation. Emma looked at me across the table. "What are you going to do?" I smiled for the first time all day. "I'm going to Christmas dinner after all, but not the way Sarah expects." Christmas morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical December weather for the Pacific Northwest. Emma and I drove the 3 hours from Seattle to my parents' house in Olympia, my Honda Civic loaded with an unusual cargo, the Christmas gifts I'd originally bought, plus a thick manila folder containing bank statements, printed text messages, screenshots of Sarah's Facebook vacation photos, and a formal loan agreement I'd drafted the night before. "Are you sure about this approach?" Emma asked, as we pulled into my parents' driveway. The house looked festive with lights and decorations that I now knew my money had purchased. "Sarah's had 3 years to come clean," I said. I tried the direct approach yesterday, and she doubled down on the manipulation. Sometimes the only way to stop a pattern of deception is to expose it completely. Cars lined the driveway and street my parents' pickup truck, Sarah and Jake's minivan, and several others belonging to extended family. Through the living room windows, I could see people moving around, preparing for the traditional Christmas dinner that had been planned around my financial contributions. Emma squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." We grabbed the gifts and the folder, walking up to the front door where my mother's Christmas wreath hung cheerfully. Before we could knock, the door opened to reveal my cousin David, who'd driven down from Vancouver with his wife Lisa and their teenage daughter. "Henry, good to see you, man." David gave me a hug, then looked curiously at the folder under my arm. "What's with the paperwork, you moonlighting as an accountant now?" "Something like that," I said with a smile. Inside the house buzzed with family activity. My Aunt Carol and Uncle Bob had come from Portland, bringing their twin college-aged sons. Jake's parents had driven over from Tacoma with his sister and her boyfriend. The living room was crowded with conversations, Christmas music playing softly, and the smell of turkey roasting in the kitchen. Sarah emerged from the kitchen wearing a red apron that said, "World's Best Mom." Her blonde hair pulled back in a festive ponytail. She stopped short when she saw me, her smile faltering. "Henry, I didn't think you were coming." "Wouldn't miss it," I said cheerfully. "Especially not after all the planning I've done for this Christmas." My father appeared from the kitchen wiping his hands on a dish towel. He looked uncomfortable, the weight of yesterday's revelation still fresh in his mind. "Son, we're glad you're here. There are some things we need to discuss as a family." "Actually, Dad, I think it's better if we discuss everything openly, with witnesses." Sarah's face paled. "Henry, maybe we should talk privately first." "I think 3 years of private conversations have been enough," I said, setting the folder on the coffee table. "Emma and I brought some things to share with everyone." The room gradually quieted as family members noticed the tension. My mother came out of the kitchen still wearing oven mitts, looking anxious. "Henry, sweetie, maybe this isn't the right time?" "It's exactly the right time, Mom. Christmas is about family honesty and generosity. I think everyone should understand who's actually been generous to this family." I opened the folder and pulled out the first set of bank statements. "For the past 3 years, I've been anonymously contributing to our family Christmas celebrations. The turkey we're about to eat, the decorations on this tree, the presents under it for Sarah's children, all of it funded by my savings." Uncle Bob looked confused. "What do you mean anonymously?" "I mean, I've been sending thousands of dollars every November thinking I was helping the family while staying humble about my contributions." I held up a bank statement showing the transfers. "This year alone, I sent $18,000. Murmurs spread through the room. David whistled softly. $18,000, holy shit, Henry." Sarah stepped forward, her voice defensive. "Henry, you're making this sound more dramatic than it is." "Am I?" I pulled out printed screenshots of text messages. "Let me read some messages my sister sent me yesterday. If you're not going to babysit 4 kids, then don't even come to Christmas dinner." This was her response when I said I wanted my girlfriend to actually meet my family instead of watching me provide free childcare. Jake's face reddened with embarrassment. His parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. I continued. "The interesting part is that while I was being lectured about family obligations, my parents were under the impression that Sarah had been the one contributing to Christmas expenses through her successful freelance writing business." "That's not exactly what happened," Sarah protested. "Isn't it?" I pulled out my laptop and opened the audio files Emma had recorded. "Emma, would you play the conversation from November 22nd? Emma connected her laptop to my parents' Bluetooth speaker. Sarah's voice filled the room. Henry's such a pushover when it comes to family stuff. The room went silent. Sarah's children looked up from their tablets, confused by the sudden tension. Henry, my Aunt Carol said slowly, "Are you saying Sarah has been taking credit for money you sent?" Before I could answer, Sarah exploded. "This is ridiculous. I never specifically claimed the money came from me. I just didn't correct people's assumptions." "For 3 years," my father said, his voice stern. "You let us believe you were making sacrifices for the family while your brother was actually providing the support." I pulled out more documents. "There's more. Last June, Sarah contacted me about an emergency. She said Mason had broken his arm and needed specialist medical care. She requested $3,000 for medical bills. I showed the room photos from Sarah's Facebook account, the family vacation in Florida, Mason clearly uninjured playing on the beach. She used my emergency loan for a vacation and told me it was for medical expenses." Jake stood up suddenly, his face white. "Sarah, you told me that vacation money came from a freelance writing project." "It did. Sort of Henry's money allowed me to take on the project without worrying about expenses." "What freelance writing project?" I asked. "Jake just told me yesterday that you don't actually have any writing clients." The room erupted in shocked conversations. My cousins were staring at Sarah in disbelief. Jake's parents looked mortified. Emma sat quietly beside me, her hand resting supportively on my arm. Mason Sarah's 12-year-old son looked up from his tablet. "Mom, I never broke my arm." "Mason, go play in the other room," Sarah snapped. "But I want to understand what Uncle Henry is talking about. Did you really take his money and lie about it?" Jake knelt down beside his son. "Mason, your mom made some mistakes about money and honesty. Uncle Henry has been helping our family and your mom didn't tell the truth about it." "So Uncle Henry bought our vacation to Florida." "Yeah, buddy, he did." Mason walked over to me and pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "I made this for you, Uncle Henry, but Mom told me to give it to her instead and thank her for Christmas stuff." He handed me a handmade thank you card with a drawing of stick figures labeled Uncle Henry and Mason's family. Inside, in careful 12-year-old handwriting, "Thank you, Uncle Henry, for helping my family. I know Mom gets money from you for Christmas and other stuff. I want you to know I'm grateful, even though Mom says I should thank her." The card was dated 3 weeks earlier. Mason had known about my contributions and had been instructed to give credit to his mother instead. Sarah's face crumpled. "Mason, I told you not to make that card." "But it's the truth, Mom. Uncle Henry deserves to be thanked for helping us." My Aunt Carol spoke into the stunned silence. "Sarah, how could you let a child participate in deceiving his own uncle?" "I wasn't deceiving anyone. I was trying to help Henry feel good about giving, while helping my parents feel proud of me." "By lying to everyone involved?" Emma said quietly. It was her first contribution to the conversation, but it carried weight. "You don't understand," Sarah said desperately. "Henry has this great job in Seattle, no kids, no real responsibilities. It's easy for him to send money. I'm barely keeping my head above water with 4 kids and a part-time job." "So you thought I owed you financial support and free labor?" I asked. "I thought you'd want to help family." "I do want to help family. I've been helping family for 3 years while you took credit and demanded more." I pulled out the final document, a formal loan agreement. "This is a repayment plan for the $3,000 you borrowed under false pretenses. $50 per month for 5 years, plus the interest you would have paid on the vacation you used my money for." Sarah stared at the paper. "You're charging me interest." "You committed fraud, Sarah. Taking money under false pretenses is illegal. The interest is me being generous instead of pressing charges." Jake took the loan agreement and read it over. "Sarah, you're going to sign this." "I don't have $50 a month." "Then you should have thought of that before lying to your brother for 3 years." My mother had been quiet during the entire confrontation, but now she spoke up. "Sarah, you owe Henry much more than money. You owe him an apology and an explanation to this entire family about why you thought it was acceptable to deceive all of us. And you owe me an explanation, Jake added, about what other lies you've told me about our finances. As Sarah stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by family members who were beginning to understand the scope of her deception, her daughter Sophia quietly approached me. The 10-year-old had been drawing in her sketchbook during the adult conversation, but now she tugged on my sleeve. "Uncle Henry, can I show you something?" I knelt down to her level. "Of course, sweetheart." She opened her sketchbook to a detailed drawing of our family around a Christmas tree. But instead of the typical family portrait, she'd drawn arrows pointing to different presents with labels from Uncle Henry's Seattle job, Uncle Henry's computer money, Uncle Henry's sacrifice. "Sophia, this is beautiful. When did you draw this?" "Last week. I heard Mom and Dad talking about Christmas money, and I know it comes from you because Mom acts different when she talks about your money versus her money." She flipped to another page showing a drawing of a woman with a bag labeled Lies and a man with a bag labeled Truth. The woman was handing the Lies bag to stick figure parents, while the man's Truth bag sat unopened in the corner. "Sweetheart, what does this picture mean?" "Mom tells different stories about money. Sometimes she says she earned it. Sometimes she says it's from writing, but I heard her tell Daddy that Uncle Henry sends money every year." Sarah noticed our conversation and walked over quickly. "Sophia, put your drawings away. This is adult talk." "But Mom, I want Uncle Henry to know that I know he helps our family. It's not fair that he doesn't get thanked." My cousin David had been listening and spoke up. "Sarah, even your 10-year-old daughter understands that giving credit where it's due is the right thing to do." Sophia looked up at her mother with the brutal honesty only children possess. "Mom, why did you tell Grandma and Grandpa that you bought the Christmas presents when Uncle Henry really did?" "Sophia, it's complicated." "No, it's not. Lying is wrong. That's what you taught me." Jake stood up and put his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Sophia's right. Lying is wrong, and we owe Uncle Henry a big apology." He turned to address the room. "I want everyone to know that I had no idea about the extent of Sarah's deception. When she told me about the vacation money, the Christmas contributions, all of it, I believed her explanations. I should have asked more questions." Sarah's face was red with embarrassment and anger. "So now everyone's going to gang up on me. I was trying to help the family." "You were helping yourself," my Aunt Carol said firmly. "Taking credit for someone else's generosity while asking for more money is not helping the family." Mason, who had been listening intently, walked over to his mother. "Mom, I love you, but what you did to Uncle Henry was mean. He works really hard in Seattle, and he sent us money because he loves us. You should have told the truth. Mason, you don't understand adult situations. I understand that Uncle Henry missed parties and fun stuff to save money for our family. Emma told me he works extra jobs just to help us." I looked at Emma, surprised. She shrugged. "Mason asked me last month during our video call why you always looked tired. I explained that you work very hard to make sure you can help people you love." Sarah turned on Emma. "So you've been talking to my children about our family finances." "I answered a child's innocent question honestly," Emma replied calmly. "Something you might consider trying." My Uncle Bob, who had been quiet during most of the confrontation, cleared his throat. "Sarah, I think what everyone's trying to say is that we're all disappointed. Not just in the lying, but in the way you treated Henry when he's been so generous." "Disappointed," Sarah's voice rose. "Everyone's acting like I'm some kind of criminal. I made a mistake. Okay, I should have been more honest about where the money came from, but Henry's not exactly poor. He can afford to help." "That's not the point," my father said firmly. "The point is that your brother has been sacrificing for this family, while you've been taking credit and asking for more. The point is that you demanded free childcare from someone who was already funding the entire celebration." Sarah looked around the room, searching for support, but found none. Even her children were looking at her with disappointment. Finally, she sat down heavily on the couch. "Fine, I screwed up. Is that what everyone wants to hear?" "We want to hear that you understand why it was wrong," my mother said gently. "And we want to know how you're going to make it right." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was smaller. I felt like such a failure compared to Henry. He moved to Seattle, got this amazing job, bought a nice apartment. I'm 32 years old, working part-time at a dental office with 4 kids and a husband who can't keep steady work. Jake winced at the reference to his employment struggles. When I realized the Christmas money was coming from Henry, I was embarrassed. I didn't want Mom and Dad to see me as the daughter who couldn't provide for her family, while my younger brother was supporting all of us. "So you decided to take credit for his support?" David asked. "I decided to let them think I was more successful than I am. And once I started, it got harder to tell the truth because I'd have to admit to years of lying." Mason walked over and sat next to his mother. "Mom, we don't think you're a failure, but Uncle Henry shouldn't have to work extra hard and not get thanked for it." Sarah looked at her son, then at me. "Henry, I'm sorry. I'm really genuinely sorry for all of it. The lying, the credit, taking the fake emergency, the babysitting demands, all of it." She stood up and walked over to where I was sitting. "I know saying sorry doesn't fix 3 years of deception, but I want you to know that I understand how wrong I was." "What about the repayment plan?" I asked, holding up the loan agreement. Sarah took a deep breath. "I'll sign it. Jake and I will figure out how to make the $50 monthly payments, and I'll pay you back for the fake medical emergency." Jake nodded. "We'll make it work even if I have to get a second job." "There's one more thing," I said. "I want a written apology to Mom and Dad explaining exactly how you deceived them about the Christmas money. They deserve to understand the full scope of what happened. And I want you to write thank you notes to Uncle Henry for every Christmas and the Florida vacation," Sophia added, "because that's what we should have done from the beginning." Sarah looked at her daughter and managed a small smile. "You're absolutely right, sweetheart." 3 months later, I was sitting in my Seattle apartment on a Saturday morning reviewing the changes that had transformed my family's dynamics since that Christmas confrontation. The manila folder that had exposed Sarah's deception now contained something entirely different: genuine apology letters, a signed repayment agreement with the first 3 payments already made, and thank you notes from all 4 of Sarah's children. Emma walked into the living room carrying 2 cups of coffee, settling beside me on the couch that overlooked Elliott Bay. The spring sunshine streamed through our windows, and I realized how much lighter I felt compared to those gray December days. "The family therapy seems to be working," Emma said, noticing the letter I was reading. Sarah's latest correspondence was different from her previous communications. No manipulation, no hidden agendas, just honest reflection about her behavior and its impact on our family relationships. She and Jake had started couples counseling to address the financial dishonesty that had damaged their marriage, and Sarah had begun individual therapy to understand why she'd felt compelled to compete with me instead of celebrating my success. "She's really trying," I acknowledged. Yesterday's letter talked about how the therapy is helping her understand that taking credit for my generosity wasn't just about embarrassment. It was about feeling like she had to prove her worth by diminishing mine. The changes weren't limited to Sarah. My parents had insisted on financial transparency going forward, and we'd established a system where any family monetary support was discussed openly with all parties involved. The shame and secrecy that had enabled Sarah's deception was replaced with honest conversations about needs, capabilities, and boundaries. Most importantly, my father's construction business had stabilized with my guidance on modernizing their operations and marketing. Instead of needing ongoing financial support, they were building sustainable income that allowed them to maintain their dignity while accepting occasional help during truly challenging periods. My phone buzzed with a text from Mason. "Uncle Henry, can you video call today? I want to show you the essay I wrote about honesty for school. It's about what happened at Christmas." I smiled and showed the message to Emma. "He's been writing about the experience as a way to process what happened." "That kid has more emotional intelligence than most adults," Emma replied. "Are you ready to tell me what you've decided about the proposal?" The engagement ring had been sitting in my sock drawer since December, waiting for the family situation to stabilize. Emma knew about my plans and had been patiently supportive while I navigated the aftermath of the Christmas confrontation. "I was thinking next weekend," I said. "Maybe a picnic at Discovery Park where we can see the mountains and the water. I can't wait to officially be part of this crazy family." Emma laughed. "Even with all the drama, watching you stand up for yourself made me love you even more." Emma had been crucial to my ability to establish boundaries. Her documentation of Sarah's manipulation and her unwavering support during the confrontation had given me the confidence to demand accountability instead of simply absorbing the abuse. More than that, seeing the situation through her eyes had helped me recognize patterns of behavior I'd accepted as normal sibling dynamics. My laptop pinged with an email from Jake. The subject line read, "Update on family finances." Inside was a detailed spreadsheet showing their household budget debt reduction plan and timeline for paying back the fraudulent emergency loan. Jake had taken a second job doing weekend construction work with my father, turning the family crisis into an opportunity to strengthen his relationship with his father-in-law while earning honest income. The most meaningful change, though, was the relationship I'd developed with Sarah's children. Without the awkward dynamic of unacknowledged financial support, I could simply be their uncle, who cared about their lives and happiness. Mason had started calling me weekly to talk about school and his interest in programming. Sophia sent me pictures of her artwork. The twins had begun asking when they could visit Seattle to see my apartment and meet my co-workers. "What time is your dad calling today?" Emma asked, checking her calendar. Every Sunday, my father and I had a 30-minute conversation that ranged from business advice to family updates to his reflections on parenting. The crisis had prompted him to examine how his avoidance of difficult conversations had enabled Sarah's manipulation, and he was actively working to be more direct and involved in family dynamics. 2 o'clock. He wants to talk about Sarah's progress and finalize plans for our summer visit." The summer visit represented another significant change. Instead of me traveling alone for stressful holiday gatherings, Emma and I were planning a relaxed week-long stay where we could spend quality time with everyone without the artificial pressure of expensive celebrations funded by my hidden contributions. My phone rang with Sarah's weekly call. These conversations had become a cornerstone of our relationship repair, allowing us to address issues directly instead of letting resentments build. "Henry, there, I got the job," Sarah said immediately when I answered. "The full-time position at the marketing firm, $38,000 a year plus benefits." "Sarah, that's incredible. Congratulations." The job represented her commitment to financial independence and honest contribution to her family's stability. Instead of relying on manipulation and my secret support, she was building the success she'd pretended to have for years. Jake and I calculated that with this salary and his construction work, we can increase the monthly loan repayments to $75 instead of $50. "We want to pay you back as quickly as possible." "I'm proud of you for taking responsibility," I said. "But don't sacrifice your family's basic needs to accelerate the repayment. The important thing is consistency and honesty." "Henry, I want to ask you something, and I promise this isn't manipulation or another attempt to take advantage. Would you consider being the kids' emergency contact for school and medical situations? Jake and I realize we need backup support, and we want that support to come from someone we trust completely." The request represented a complete reversal of our previous dynamic. Instead of secretly funding emergencies while being excluded from important decisions, Sarah was inviting me to be officially involved in her children's welfare. "I'd be honored," I replied. "Send me the paperwork and contact information." After hanging up, I walked to the window and looked out at the Seattle skyline. The city that had represented my escape from family drama had become the foundation for healthier relationships, built on mutual respect and clear boundaries. Emma joined me at the window. "You know what I've learned watching you navigate all this... What's that?" Setting boundaries isn't about being selfish or cutting people off. It's about creating space for genuine love and respect to grow. When you stopped enabling Sarah's manipulation, you actually made room for a real relationship with her. She was absolutely right. By refusing to accept credit theft and financial abuse, I'd forced Sarah to confront her own behavior and develop genuine appreciation for my support. The artificial harmony maintained by my silence had prevented authentic connection, while the temporary conflict of confrontation had created space for honest relationships. I used to think that keeping peace was the same as maintaining love, I reflected. But really, I was just avoiding the difficult work of building relationships based on truth and respect. The most profound lesson wasn't about money or family dynamics, though. It was about understanding my own worth and refusing to accept treatment that diminished it. Emma had helped me see that my desire to help others shouldn't require me to hide my contributions or accept disrespect in return. My phone buzzed with another message, this one from my mother. Henry, your father and I want you to know how proud we are of how you handled the Christmas situation. We realize we failed you by not recognizing Sarah's manipulation earlier, and we're grateful you found the courage to speak up. The acknowledgement meant everything. For years, I'd wondered if my parents valued Sarah's supposed contributions more than they valued me. Learning that they'd been deceived rather than dismissive had healed wounds I didn't even realize were still bleeding. As I prepared to call Mason for our weekly video chat, I reflected on the journey from that devastating Christmas text message to this moment of genuine family connection. The crisis had revealed the difference between enabling dysfunction and supporting growth, between keeping artificial peace and building lasting trust. Standing up for myself hadn't destroyed my family relationships as I'd feared. Instead, it had demanded that everyone involved rise to higher standards of honesty and respect. Sarah had learned to take responsibility for her actions. My parents had learned to communicate more directly. Jake had learned to ask harder questions about family finances. The children had learned about integrity and gratitude. Most importantly, I'd learned that protecting my generosity by setting clear boundaries actually made my help more meaningful and my relationships more authentic. True family support wasn't about unlimited sacrifice, but about creating sustainable ways to care for each other while maintaining individual dignity and respect. The $18,000 had been about much more than Christmas dinner. It had been about understanding my own value and demanding that others recognize it too. In the end, the best gift I could give my family wasn't silent financial support, but the example of someone who refused to be taken for granted. As Emma and I planned our future together, I felt grateful for the crisis that had forced these conversations. Without Sarah's manipulation being exposed, I might have continued the pattern indefinitely, slowly building resentment while enabling behavior that hurt everyone involved. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a family is refuse to participate in dysfunction, even when that refusal creates temporary conflict. The short-term discomfort of confrontation had created space for long-term relationships based on honesty, respect, and genuine appreciation. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where being generous was taken for granted, or where family members expected your help without acknowledging your sacrifices? How did you handle setting boundaries while still maintaining loving relationships? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about family dynamics, relationships, and finding the courage to stand up for yourself. Share this with anyone who might be struggling with similar family boundary issues. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve relationships where your generosity is acknowledged and your boundaries are respected. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is demand the respect you've always deserved.